it was just a no-brainer. It has to be done. And there was no qualms about it within the club. But I think it's just maybe something that hadn't come across the radar. It's not something that had come to the level of board, maybe, that had been in a position to make that change at that time. So I was really proud of that. I think for me, that was something really important, to be able to have that inclusivity with the women's game and to start to grow that within the club. So yeah, bits and bobs I did at being St Mirren, and then Rangers asked me if I could help them host a fan zone, something that they'd started doing not long after lockdown, a way to try and have some entertainment on for the fans ahead of a match, which had live music. It has pre-show interviews with first team players. It's got the women's team in there as well. And it's also got the B team. It's got former players too. So there's a lot to chat there, and it's like a full production. It's like a TV show without without a live camera, but there's mics there. There's a big stage. You might have heard of Edmondson House, the great facility that they've just built. So through that, I ended up doing launches for Christmas adverts, and things just kept coming. I launched the women's first ever training session, open training session that the Rangers women had just a few weeks ago. In fact, gosh, no, it would have been before Christmas now, 16th of December. Goodness me. How are we at the end of January already? Oh my goodness. But yeah, so the women's first open training session, the first time ever they had a female on the mic to introduce the teams and as an announcer for when the women played Aberdeen at Ibrox, which was just something different. And it just shows that the women's game growing so much. So through doing that, I then ended up doing more and more in the women's game with the BBC for women's sports scene. Jane Lewis and the team there have done such an incredible job on that and still do. And unfortunately for Jane, but fortunately for me, Jane had got COVID at one point. And they'd asked, I was doing all the voiceovers for all of the games. So I would go in on a Sunday and watch all the bits of the games that had been cut down. I couldn't see a full game because obviously if you think of how many games there are in the short space of time and the quick time to turn it around, it wasn't possible. But I'd get a sort of highlights reel that I could watch and then do voiceovers on. So I think it was 3 or 4 shows I ended up covering for Jane. Either she was doing the men's sports scene or, as I say, unfortunately, COVID was around the corner. So it enabled to put me into a spotlight that I always wanted to do sports scene, but I didn't even, well, women's sports scene was never a thing. It wasn't. So for me to be involved in that was just one of the most amazing moments in my life, pinching myself sitting on that sofa. And still to this day, you'll see if you ever look on my Instagram. I'm not telling people to look at it, but there's like one on the top, is like pinned at the top, like that.
That's the plan. I nicked that off your Instagram to post that you were covered on here.
Did you? It's the show, but yeah.
So obviously you've been in the media industry for a number of years now, but obviously it's kind of taking a direction within our own domestic women's game. So how can you reflect on it and how much it is growing? It's grown massively in the last 5 years, but then even more so in the last 2 years. So how has it been from your perspective and like the coverage that it's now getting given from the powers that be in the media?
It's super exciting because as I mentioned, I wanted to be a Sky Sports presenter. That's always what I thought I wanted to do. But when I was doing my journalism degree, I did a work placement with Sky Sports. I spent a lot of time with James Cole, who was fantastic. And I spent David Jane Dougal. And we were at the launch of the women's kits and the start of the league for the women's league down south. And it was so exciting. And then I was like, there's nothing like that I'm aware of in Scotland. And I'm not saying it wasn't happening, but it wasn't in the media. There wasn't the big press launch. Sky weren't there. It wasn't a big thing. And I thought, this is crazy. And after spending a bit of time down with Sky, I realised that that's not what I wanted to do because so much of it was cricket. And I had no interest in cricket. Nothing against it. It didn't draw me in. The most exciting part was when the English cricket team were playing football in their warm-up. I was like, yes, this is good. But yeah, so I realised that maybe out and about roving reporting for Sky Sports in England wasn't for me with the amount of cricket. Like the majority of the week was cricket, and then I got one day where I got to go to Arsenal and do press conferences, and another day where I got to go with Jane Dougal. And I was like, this is brilliant. I want to know what's going on in Scotland with the women's game. And it was pretty much through Jane Lewis that I started getting more and more excited about the women's game and being able to find out a wee bit more about it through the women's sports scene. And then the BBC were saying, can you go and cover the games? Can you cover the women's final, the cup final? I was like, absolutely. And the fact that the cup final was getting bigger and bigger stadiums, the fact that the Scotland women started playing at Hampden, it was so exciting, and it is still so exciting, but there's so much more to grow. The fact that there's, in the past few years, it's only been the first that they've played at the same stadium as the men's teams. For so many of the women's team, it's a first that they're having open training sessions, and this is all amazing. It's first that women can actually do this as a full-time professional job. This is a career. You can go to school and you think, I could be a professional footballer as a female, which when I was at school, it wasn't ever anything that was available. That wasn't a job role, a bit like when I wanted to be a presenter when I did Careers Day. If someone had said they want to be a female professional footballer, I mean, I got laughed at in a punishment exercise, so I can't imagine what they might have got suspended. I don't know what would have happened then, but I was really lucky when I was at school. I think I'm one of the very few that at Houston Primary, where I went in a wee village in Renfrewshire, I was allowed to play in the boys' football team. And my mum still, I think she worries about this to this day, because I wasn't allowed to go. My mum said, you can play with the boys' team, but you have to train with them on a Tuesday and a Thursday and play on a Saturday. You can't just turn up and play on a Saturday and go to your dancing on a Tuesday and Thursday. And I was like, oh, I can do both. It's fine. The coach said it doesn't matter. She can come. She can be our striker. She doesn't need to come to training. She can just come on a Saturday. And my mum said, well, if that was your brother and he went every week to training and a girl turned up and played on a Saturday and he didn't get to play, but he'd gone to all the training, that could be the highlight of that, like a young boy's primary school was being in the football team, and you would get to do that. So she said, if you want to play football, that's fine, but you go to the training and you do the same as everybody else if you want to be in the team. So I think at that time I didn't understand her point. I was like, I don't understand. Like, I could just, he says I can play, it's fine, I can do both. But looking back, I think she's quite right. If that's what I want to do as a sport, then I will go and I will train. I won't just turn up and take the glory of playing. It's not fair. So I was really lucky. And when I went to Grife High School, there was a girls' football team, but there wasn't a boys' one.
Right.
Which I found mad. But
yeah.
It was the technical department. He was happy to coach a girls' team, wasn't interested in coaching a boys' team. I ended up being in the golf team, so I didn't play football. I don't think I was that good at it, to be fair. But I was very fortunate, so I didn't see what a lot of people are seeing. I watched your interview with Ailey Barber before, and it was all, there's a boys' teams, and there wasn't a girls' team, whereas I was really fortunate. It was the opposite for me. I could have played football if I'd wished, and looking back now, I see how fortunate I am and how forward-thinking that wee town of Renfrewshire, a wee village of Renfrewshire and Houston is. It's super exciting that they were already like there. But to see where it's at now, to see where the finals are being held for the cup, to see this coverage that Sky Sports are giving it, it's so exciting. And to think that is now going to school, I want to be a female footballer. I know they've got the SFA performance camp schools for boys. I don't know if they have for the girls yet. That's maybe something.
Yeah, there are.
Are they?
Aren't as many, but they are
Right.
out there. Yeah, which is a good step forward, and I think it's going to take. It's one of those. It starts at S1, so it's going to take time to bed in while they get speed up. But it's all steps in the right direction for sure.
It's so exciting, so exciting. And there's someone who I know who works locally, and their granddaughter is being scouted to play football in America and get a scholarship and go over there and play. And she plays with Kilmarnock girls she plays with at the moment. And I'm thinking, this is so exciting. This is wonderful. The fact that obviously you don't want to go out of Scotland, you want to keep the homegrown talent, but the fact that there's people from America looking at Scotland for the talent of female footballers, that for me is so exciting.
So just going back to something that you mentioned before, when it was your parents in there reminding you how good you were at giving lines that you've seen on TV and they're wondering
Oh,
how you remembered them. So as you were growing up and you knew from a very early age you wanted to be a presenter, or are there
yeah.
presenters within the sporting realm that you did and you do look up to that were kind of trailblazers? And at that time in particular, it was a male dominated industry, still is to a certain degree, but you're starting to see more and more female presenters in what are historically, I'll use this inverted commas, male sports, particularly in football.
Yeah.
But who were the kind of role models that you looked up to?
Can't remember the name, and this is going to be terrible. When I used to drive home, I know I drove out in the back, but when we were on the way home from the football, what I loved to do was try and predict what the score was going to be. You know how they do the roundup of the scores?
Yeah.
It's like Brechin won, Montrose two. And then you'd be like, no, that should go up because they won. And I used to do that in the car, the back of the car. It was always a man. It was always a male presenter. Not there's anything wrong with that, but it just so happened there always was. And I loved doing that. And I always loved to try and do that. And I thought, love a female to do that. I wish I heard a woman doing that. I always thought, well, that's what the men do. The men get to read out the scores. The women don't get to do that. And I used to watch a lot of sport. My mum used to be quite good at tennis. So we love watching Sue Barker. I just think she's phenomenal. And then Question of Sport is something that I just find so much fun. And we can watch it as a family, and it was really good. And Alan McCoist was really funny. And I think I'd had a couple of meetings with Alan McCoist because he didn't live too far away from where we lived in Houston. So he would come down now and again with his fish and chips from local chippy and be like, oh, I'll have a wee kickabout with you. So it's almost because I'd seen him in real life and I'd then seen him on the telly. I was like, oh, this is like, I could maybe present that show like Sue Barker because I know, I didn't know Ali McCoist, but I was like, oh, I feel like I've had an interaction or two with him and he's played football with us. So that's achievable. And
Hmm.
it was, so yeah, probably Sue Barker for me. I know it wasn't like a football presenter, but it was just sports that I love. I really enjoyed that. And I used to watch the golf all the time. So being able to see female presenters in golf, I think is quite exciting. But then now that coming into football, I mean, obviously, Ailey Barber, and we've had her on the show. For me, she was one of the people when I came back to Scotland that was when she was started presenting the golf. I was like, brilliant, love this, love everything about this. So yeah, seeing a female as the sort of the face of BBC Sport for me was amazing to see and very exciting because I knew I wanted to present within sport. I just didn't know what. And I know I love loads of sports. I love basketball, netball. I used to play them. I used to be a dancer. I loved ice skating. So for me, there's just so much buzzing about my head. But the fact that for me, I wanted to do something that my family would enjoy. And I know that sounds really silly, but when I was in shopping telly, my brother would watch it because I was on it, but he wouldn't watch it. Like he's not going to sit for 5 hours and watch me sell jewellery on the telly. Like it's not really going to be of interest to him. But me telling him I'm on BBC Sports, seeing results, he's going to watch it and he's going to listen to it and we're going to have a chat about it and there's going to be excitement about it. And my family are so supportive, but for me to have something that I can enjoy with my brother is really, really important to me. So the fact that football is such a common ground for us and it's a way for me to enjoy a job, which sounds ridiculous. I'm enjoying a job, but I'm actually doing something that my family can engage with in a really exciting, positive way. Is that a weird thing,
No, no, I
right?
don't, not to make this about me, but I get exactly the same thing since I've started doing
Yeah.
this, and you get your family engaging with things that you might not necessarily do previously, but yeah, it sparks that interest, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So for me, that's really exciting to have something with my brother and my mum and my dad. My mum and dad support everything I do, but when you know that they genuinely watch football and there's chat and like, what ground are you going to today? Oh, I'm going to Ayr United today, and oh, who are you on the open all mics with? And I was telling them all, and they're like, oh yeah, it's just lovely to have that excitement as well. It makes the job even more exciting, as if it's not exciting enough.
No, that's great, and I really appreciate you coming on. And hopefully, a lot of the viewers and the listeners that are going to be tuning into this, they can hear your story. They can see that there is pathways there. You don't have to be an elite level sports person to go on and to work in the industry that you're in. And have that buzz for something that you're passionate about and something that I've spoken to people about before. I've got a cheek saying that this is a job because I come on and talk about football all the time. So it's just about finding something that you enjoy, but then having the passion to then go and do it. And people such as yourself are a testament to that it definitely is achievable from people that are from Scotland can go on and do that.
And also, there's if for me, for a takeaway, if somebody had said this to me when I was younger, I would have possibly taken it in. But I think now I really appreciate it. That be a sponge, soak up everything that anyone can offer to you. If they've got time for you, take it, even if it's just a few wee moments. But if it's not necessarily the path you thought you were going to take, don't write it off, because shopping TV is not something I was going to take. I didn't think it would be lead me where I wanted to be, but I think in the end you will end up where you're meant to be. So I think if you just follow the process, work really hard, focus on what you enjoy. But if things come your way, for example, open all mics is something that I thoroughly love right now. I really enjoy it. But the first time I was offered to do it, I was like, I can't do that. I've never done commentary in my life. I don't have no clue what to do. I just watch the football. I'm not a commentator. I'm not a former footballer. I'm not a pundit. How do I do that? But then I thought, well, I need to look at it from my point of view. And I'm a fan, but I know about football. So I'll take that element of it and bring something different to it. So it's not necessarily about always getting the dream job straight away. It's about accepting jobs that will help you get to where you want to be for your end goal, but just keep that end goal there.
No, absolutely. And thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you. I feel like I've chatted for ages. It's always me asking the questions. Usually I don't speak this much. I'm so sorry.
No, it didn't feel like ages. It was great hearing from you.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you taking time to ask me on.
No problem. And thanks everyone for joining us on SWPL My Story.